name's Johnson-Medland. I'm here today to share with you a program entitled Giving Voice. You should have in front of you a packet of worksheets entitled Giving Voice, and then also an article which I've written and published entitled Giving Voice as well. This article basically goes through this entire presentation and shares the information in written form. I'd like you to turn in your packet to the second page, the one entitled Giving Voice Grief Work. And I'd like to take a look at the sheet here and help you fill out portions of it, and then have you pause the video so that you can fill out the rest of the form for yourself to take with you. The concept of giving voice comes from years and years of us listening to our patients and their families as they talk about the loss experience, the grief experience that comes along with being a hospice patient. And the idea is mostly the concept of things that are inside of us coming out of us to be expressed. We are giving voice to the things that are happening in perhaps less visible areas of our lives, interior areas of our lives, psychological components and emotional features of our lives, but we're allowing them to have some stage in our life so that they can be heard and seen and reviewed and looked at and seen how they fit into all of our life, because this process of giving voice to the things that are going on within us is a part of how we heal in any therapeutic process, but particularly in the grief and loss experience. I think if we go back to a pivotal finding in 1948 of a series of scrolls in a cave in Qumran, found by a shepherd, packed in clay pots, were a series of scrolls that were known as the Nag Hammadi texts. And these scrolls were ancient texts, some of them scriptural, some of them historical. There was one particular text known as the Gospel of Thomas that had in it perhaps only 80 verses, but in around the 70th verse, there was this wonderful quote that says, "If you allow that which is within you to come out, it will save you. But if you do not allow that which is within you to come out, it will destroy you." And I've always loved that verse since reading it, because it really does paint for us an image of the therapeutic process, allowing things inside to come out so that they can be viewed, digested, sequenced, put into proper perspective, and also used to help put our lives into some semblance of coping, or back into some semblance of what we've known after we experience various things in life. In the grieving process, that is no different. Allowing ourselves to see what's going on and feel what's going on inside of ourselves helps us to move through the process. So what we've done is we've divided our lives into 4 basic areas: the heart, the mind, the soul, and the body. And we'd like to look at what each of those things does normally in life, and then what those things do during a time of grief, and how can we learn to benefit from the understanding of what goes on in those areas. There's no magic number here for, that it has to be mind, heart, soul, and body. As a matter of fact, some people would reduce it down to 2. Some could expand it out to 17 or 20 different areas. But for the sake of the research that we've done through the lives that we've touched and worked with and have been touched by, we kind of are using these as central categories because they make the most sense. And they are something that I think traditions, both cultural and religious, have spoken of throughout time. So I think most of us will have a point of understanding of these 4 areas that we can easily delve into. For the soul, we're not talking about a religious component or a spiritual component, but we're talking about more the drives and the underground passions and desires and hopes and dreams that move a life forward. So I want to be clear at the outset that a spiritual component to this talk would really be best done by whoever your spiritual leader is, either your imam or your rabbi, your priest or your pastor, or your spiritual director. So if you want to add a spiritual component to the work that we're doing today, we would recommend turning to the spiritual community. So let's start by listing out the things that are going on in each of these areas, and then we'll pause the video so you can go ahead and complete filling out the different areas with information that you have and would like to share. So the mind, what does the mind do? The mind is the area responsible for thinking, for reasoning, for categorizing, for remembering and holding on to, choosing, selecting, sequencing, and determining. So the mind has many, many things it does. It figures things out, it focuses on them, it helps to categorize things. Like this entire talk that we're doing is organized by the mind. How about the heart? What does the heart do? Well, the heart is the place of feeling, and those feelings are manifold. Just like the capabilities of the mind are manifold, so are the capabilities of feeling with the heart. We can love, we can have joy, we can have peace and contentment. We could have disturbance or anxiety. We could have envy. We could feel strife. We could feel discord. We could feel happiness. We can feel completeness. So these are the feelings that go on inside of the heart. The soul, what is the soul responsible for? Well, it is, as I said earlier, the place where our drives exist, our deep passion for life, that exuberance, that it's almost like the fuel behind the heart and the mind in many cases, but it's where we hope, it's where we dream, it's where we create things. Artists particularly understand this, or those portions of our lives that are artistic or creative. You can understand what soul is by tapping into that. When you sing a song, or when you paint a painting, or write a verse, that power that helps you to do that, which is sometimes called the muse, that is really what your soul is. That's the drive in your life. And it's the great underground river that feeds other things. It gives people reasons, really, to move ahead. And the body, what's that? Well, the body has tactile feeling. It's able to move, it's able to consume, it can exercise, it can procreate, it can laugh, it can sleep, it can obsess. So these are the 4 different aggregates that we want to talk about, and we want to bring around each of these areas more content. So turn the video off for a little bit and fill out more things that you are aware of that your mind, your heart, your soul, and your body do. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3rd sheet in the handout, and this sheet looks very much the same. Only what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about these aggregate areas in our life and how they function, or how they are changed, or how they perform during a time of grief and loss. So let's take a look at the mind. The mind during a time of grief and loss tends to forget. It tends to get lost. It tends to be unable to focus in the fashion that it has most normally on a routine basis. It cannot organize things the way it has. And I think a simple example at the outset of this portion of the program is to say, you know, when you take a little snow globe, one of those little holiday globes that has maybe a house or some skiers in it, and then you shake it, and then all of the snow comes up and just is everywhere, disorganized, and it settles. That's kind of the process during grief and loss that people experience. So that happens in each of these 4 areas. It happens in the mind, the body, the soul, and the heart. So if you think about that image of getting shaken up, I think it'll help you understand what's going on in each of these 4 areas. That sort of is the feeling. There's a confusion that goes on in the mind, almost a randomness. You feel like things are coming at you that you've never seen before. And a very common experience or expression that people have during the time of grief and loss, whether it's the death of a loved one, or whether it's the changing of an experience in life, perhaps a divorce or moving away, changing of a job. These larger losses, people say they feel lost. Just like that shaking of the globe where things are disturbed and a little bit out of the normal sequence of calm and peaceful and sedate life that we tend to crave as human beings, it's shaken up and they feel lost. They don't know where they are. They don't know what's coming next. And that experience goes through each of these different areas that have aggregate components to them. So the mind feels lost, doesn't know where it's going, and it really doesn't understand some of the things that it did on a routine basis. We encourage people, because of this confusion, to keep a paper, either a pad of paper with them, or a journal and a pencil or pen, so that they can write things down, because this notion of not remembering or being lost is very strong and distressing for people. So that's what happens in the mind. There's an unsettling of it. And I think if you go back to an experience of loss in your life, you can probably plug into this in an even more visceral way. Think of the days everybody spends around the bedside, the final days of Uncle Harry, and, people are there taking care of his needs, sharing the, life events and taking care of each other. It's almost surreal and almost very ritual space because it feels different than any other point in life. And it's almost like you're isolated from the rest of life and you're able to just concentrate on that event. However, then Uncle Harry dies, and everybody realizes they've got to get back to doing things that they've put on hold. So for some people, they'll have to leave and go home to families or to work. Other people will want to tend to Uncle Harry's body and make sure that the hospice or the hospital facility nurse is called or the undertaker's called, so someone will do that. Somebody will inevitably say, let's, clean up the place, let's, do a little something physical. And at some point, somebody will say, oh, Harry is gone. Joe, why don't you go out and get some food? We've all been here taking care of him for several days and we haven't eaten properly. And so Joe will go around and get an order from everybody. What do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? He'll try to remember it like he normally would in life. He'd be able to do that. And then he'll leave. And as soon as he leaves the house or the facility, he gets out to the street or the parking lot. He can't find his keys. Doesn't remember where he parked. Doesn't remember all the orders. That feeling that we've all had, that very visceral place in the life of grief and loss, is something that we can plug into. Just like the snow globe is a good example, that also is a good example of what goes on throughout the whole process. Things are not the same. Things that we normally do, we cannot do easily, and we need prompts to help us get through it. So now let's look at the mind. What goes on in the mind? Well, in the heart, just like in the mind, where we rifle through a series of cognitive apertures or cognitive ways of being, so in the heart, the same thing. We will rifle through or go through a series of emotions, perhaps one right after another, and this will feel just like the snow globe, a portion of our life that is now shaken up. In the past, we may have been able to digest an emotion, one emotion at a time, or sustain several emotions over a period of time. During a time of loss, we often feel that things are shaken up and the emotions are coming through very quickly. First there's joy because we had a great life with Uncle Harry. Then there's sadness because Uncle Harry is gone. Then there's a sense of hope because he gave us such great vision for the way we wanted to be. And then there's a sense of relief because he's not suffering anymore. And then there's a horrible sense of guilt that you're feeling that there's a sense of relief because he's not here. And so these emotions go on and on and on. Just like in the mind, the heart then feels like a place that you don't know anymore. And just like in the mind, we said there's that sense of being lost, of not knowing where you are, not knowing where you're going, so also in the heart and with the emotions. How about in the soul? What's disturbed there? Well, we can feel abandoned. The abandonment is a larger emotion. It's a more pivotal and more underground drive in us. The drive is centered around belonging to other people. So if in our soul we feel community and creativity and a sense of belonging, when we experience loss or a death, what we experience is a sense of abandonment. We may lose our sense of hope, or we may gain a deeper sense of hope. Let's go back to Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry used to take you camping as a kid. He gave you a great vision of what the outdoors was like, and he helped you see the world in a new perspective, that beauty and wonder was all around you. So when your soul is disturbed by the loss, it may allow you to unearth these great underground passions of connectedness to the environment and a positive feeling of hope because of your ability to do that. But then there might also be the sense of, oh, but Harry's gone. Am I going to be able to do that again in the future? Am I going to feel as connected to the community of those people who find wonder and beauty in the outdoors? So you can feel like you have an immense set of new dreams to fulfill in your life because Harry gave you this ability. Now you want to pass it on. Or you can feel, oh, my sense of dreaming is lost for a while because Harry is the one I turn to for that. So you see how it can be back and forth, and it can be, again, the snow globe of life, everything's shaken up. You can feel sufficient or you can feel insufficient. Again, these are greater, larger drives and passions that exist in our life. Sometimes people find that they're very, very connected to their core values during a time of loss because there are a lot of people around them that they are connected to, or sometimes they feel very lost and distressed or separated from those core values because one of the people that gave you those core values in your life is now gone. So again, just like in the mind and in the heart, there's a sense of rifling through a series of scenarios or deeper soulful feelings in life. Some of them easy to deal with, some of them a little bit more difficult to deal with. And the same is true with the body. You know, the body will go through a series of things like the snow globe, and like the example of being lost, it will not know where it is and what it's doing or where it's going. So you may eat a little or not enough or too much. You may sleep too little or too much. You may find yourself having nervous energy and you have to exercise, or you may find yourself lethargic and unable to exercise. You may find yourself getting agitated. You may find yourself very spaced out or lost, as people describe. I don't know what this thing is my body is feeling. You may find a need to go for hikes to help process and do something with this feeling, or to dance, or to lift weights, or to do yoga. You may find that you need time to just sit and to focus and to cry. You may find yourself crying a lot or not crying at all. Again, the body, just like the mind, heart, and soul, is going to see a series of things rising and falling in its daily life, and it will feel lost, unsure of where it is, and unsure of where it's going. So this is a little bit about what happens during the grieving process to those four areas that have aggregated all kinds of emotion and activity around them. Now what I'd like to do is share the final sheet, which is the story sheet. One of the ways that we believe we are able to process the things that are going on inside of us is by giving them voice, and that's what this final sheet is about. It's about taking a look at each of these areas in our life and then trying to put down some things that are going on in those areas as a result of the loss or change that you've experienced. So look at the first block, the upper left-hand block. It says mind stories and memories. In this area, we want to write down memories or mind stories that we have about, let's say, Uncle Harry. And so here you would start to write down those things that you remember doing with Uncle Harry, or having Uncle Harry say, or Uncle Harry did. You know, oh, I remember the time he took us camping at Glacier Lake. It was the first time I had ever seen such a pristine wilderness. So you write that memory down. Now, allowing that memory to come up and out of us is very important in the process. But when that memory comes up and out of us, it brings with us something else. It brings a story that comes from the heart. So while this story, the first story about going to Glacier Lake with Harry, may have come from the mind, there is a story that comes from the heart. What's that story? Well, it's how do you feel when you talk about going camping with Uncle Harry to Glacier Lake? So in this heart story, the upper right-hand side, you would write, it makes me feel exhilarated and connected to my family. So what does it make you feel? Write the story in the first block, or a memory. Then in the second block, how does that make you feel? Then in the third block, down at the bottom left, is the soul story. How is this story in the mind and in the heart attached to your hopes and dreams? Let's go back to Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry fed my understanding of the wilderness and how beauty and wonder are very important parts of our life. So I would write in here, my hopes and dreams are that beauty and wonder are important. Or another one could be, Uncle Harry always took the family camping. So family outings and gatherings on a routine basis are critical for my sense of identity. This is the soul. Remember, the place where there's passion, hope, dreams, a sense of connectedness to other people. So what's going on in your soul as a result of the story from the mind and from the heart? That's there. And then, what's your body story? How is your body going to celebrate or tell a story about Uncle Harry and this idea of camping? Well, maybe what the body does is the body goes camping. And so maybe your commitment to the story in your body will be, I'm going to do this on a routine basis. So every year I'm going to go to Glacier Lake with my family, or I'm going to plan an outing so that we can relive this series of stories. Not only the mind story and the heart story about Uncle Harry and those trips, but also the soul story, that these things are important to our life as a family and as a people. That's how the body will celebrate them. So this is one simple example of walking through what we call the Giving Voice Grid to help you process some of these things. Now, there's hundreds of stories about Uncle Harry, and that's just one of them. But this is how we start that process. So I would encourage you, if you are a facility representative and you're expressing grief over the loss of one of your patients or clients, that I would suggest you turn off the camera and start to share some mind stories about some of the clients you've lost. Or if this is a family watching this, turn off the camera and start telling some stories about the person you lost, and then how you feel about that loss. And then what about those memories and those feelings connects you to the deeper soulful side of life. What is your soul saying about this? Have your dreams been dashed or encouraged because of this loss? How were you connected to a sense of larger dreaming and hopes because of this person in your life? And then what are you going to do in your body to grieve? Are you going to spend some time every month getting together to remember the people that you've lost? And so, take some silent time to think and reflect on that, because that's allowing your body to do something as well. I think the easiest way to understand how this all fits together is to think of the process that we naturally know when we lose somebody. We've talked about the hospital room or the deathbed and what goes on there. Let's now look at the funeral, the wake, or the celebration, the ritual celebration around death. When we're having that ritual celebration, whether it's a wake or a funeral, an interment, or a memorial service, there's a sense of austerity and awesome ritual space that we experience. We feel that this is an elevated event, that it's somehow very sacred and special. So we're somber. We're taking a look at the fact that we'll all die. We're taking a look at the fact that this person has left us, and is no longer with us. So there's a larger, more corporal feeling of ritual celebration of life and death. And those feelings are very important because we need to process them as humans, because we ourselves are going to go through this. And every time we see a death, we recalibrate our life based on the fact that our life is not going to be forever. So when we leave that place, though, what do? Well, we tend to go back someplace where we sit around a table and either have food or drink or just a time to relax. And the first thing that starts to happen that changes the mood in the room from that austere look at life and death to something that we're more familiar with on a routine basis is somebody tells a story. Somebody says, do you remember the time that Uncle Harry took everybody and that's when it starts. And one story after another comes out. And so we know that storytelling, telling our tale, allowing to give voice to what's in us is so critical. We see it happen time and time again. This program has been a little bit about how we can take something that we naturally use as a process to heal and how we can superimpose upon it some understanding of our relationship to the experience and or the person that we've lost, and that we can use what we feel in our heart, what we think in our mind, what we are driven and passionate about in our souls and our very physical bodies to grieve those losses and give voice to the things that are going on inside of us. So I hope this program has been helpful. We're going to turn off the camera now, and we hope that you'll spend some time doing question and answer if you're in a group, or filling out these sheets if you're by yourself. And remember, the key is telling tales, giving stories, and giving voice to all that's going on inside of you concerning this loss of either a person in your life or an experience in your life. So our hope for you is that your grieving will go well and you'll find support and comfort in the group of people that are surrounded by you. If you need any assistance, please refer to the numbers that are attached to this YouTube video or to the information that the community liaisons and social workers hand out for you from Lighthouse Hospice.